Hi everybody and welcome to Beyond L&D. I'm really chuffed that this week we've got Martin Garity, who has been in L&D for many years, really varied career, and now is involved in some really interesting areas, which I'd love to hear more about from you, Martin, especially around helping people in job searching and getting back into the workplace and all that great stuff. So that's the whole spirit of Beyond L&D. It's about taking individuals who have some sort of L&D interest or background, but have been able to take some of those skills to move beyond L&D, in this case, helping people. So really excited to hear more about that. So hello, Martin.
Hello, Catherine. Nice to be here. Thank you for asking me.
So we've been in touch for quite a few years, but I was surprised that you said earlier that it was how many years since we've actually physically seen each other?
I think it must have been either 2016 or 2017. So we've communed online, but we've not done any business together. We've not been in the same room together.
Yeah.
And I met you because there was some training work you did for an organisation that I work for. It was the Ministry of Defence, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, a long time ago. Interesting stuff. So Martin, you mentioned that in your career in L&D, it's been really varied. You've done some of the sort of analytical side of back office side of organising of L&D, but you've been front of house as well, and your traditional 1, 2, 3, 5-day programs. Surprisingly, although they're in the minority, they still do exist, don't they? Some of those long ones.
Of course, Lots of organisations still rely on that for sure.
But you said, you've made more of a transition of less of that face-to-face stuff and more one-to-one coaching. So how's that?
And of course, coaching is one of those components of the L&D world that's become more prevalent and more used and more valuable to organisations during my career. There wasn't a great deal of one-to-one coaching going on when I started in the very early 80s, except possibly I would have guessed for some very senior chief execs who might hire a guru from Harvard or from London Business School to work with them. It wasn't fashionable back then, but it's become more so. It's not a surprise for a middle manager and perhaps even for a first-line supervisor to have a mentor or trained coach somewhere in the organisation who might not be their line manager. So I've watched that change evolve over the course of my career, and I've fallen in love with it. So I still do lots of group work and enjoy it very much, but I do more and more one-to-one work now. And for me, the reason I like it so much is that I think I'm more likely to see a visible, measurable change in a single learner than I am in every member of a group of 12 to 15 with whom I'm working. I just find it's more rewarding in a sense to get those light bulb moments when you're working one-on-one, because you can go deeper. Some of the changes are more profound. For sure.
I totally get that.
That makes sense.
It makes complete sense. And I do love one-to-one stuff. I find it hard work though, because my preference is for extroversion on the MBTI. Where are you?
So for me, my MBTI profile is right near the middle line. Slight preference for introversion. So that means working for myself. If you were to tell me I was spending the whole day on my own, I would be perfectly comfortable and happy with that, because I can think, I can create, I can write. And if necessary, I can pick up the phone, but that's very comfortable for me. If you put me in front of a group of learners, though, I'm so close to the midline that I can switch it on. Like a light bulb moment, I can just turn it on and it becomes more of a performance in front of a group as I try to engage every member. I love party and the banter that goes on between a group and a facilitator or trainer, where there'll be questions, there'll be objections, there'll be arguments, there'll be lack of clarity sometimes. And I just love all that sort of facilitation, that toing and froing, if you like. One-to-one, it's much more intimate in a sense, and enables you to go into those more profound issues.
So a couple of things that you're doing that I would label as beyond L&D at the moment. The first one is you're volunteering, aren't you, as a coach?
So
tell us about that.
I do quite a lot of it. Yeah, the two sort of forms of volunteering that I've done over recent years. One is I've done quite a lot of work with job seekers pro bono. There are a couple of job clubs with which I'm quite involved, one of which I created in the town near where I live, Banbury in Oxfordshire. I created that job club, and I work one-on-one with executive job seekers there who've been looking for a while and just feel stuck. And there's another one further down the M40 in Gerrards Cross, where I do a lot of one-to-one work there as well. So that's one form of volunteering. And the other one is that I do give about an afternoon a week at the moment to my local prison, which houses 1,100 male offenders, some of whom are awaiting sentence, some of whom are serving quite long sentences. And I work one-on-one with prisoners and sometimes staff as well. There are 400 staff there as well. So yes, it's a pastoral care kind of service that's given. Yeah.
And you said that just now, when you're doing one-to-one coaching, you really get to see the impact of what you're doing. How does that play out with the offenders? Subtle
difference between coaching and pastoral care. Okay. There is a difference here. I'm not trying to achieve a specific objective with a pastoral person that I'm pastorally caring for. I'm simply trying to be there to help them through a tough, dramatic or difficult experience, which is what being locked up in prison really is. Sometimes there's bad news to impart. So, for example, one of my jobs in that pastoral setting is to let prisoners know that there's been a death in the family, for example. So I had to do that only yesterday with a young man whose father had passed away. And then you're into the sort of bereavement support component of that one-to-one, but it's not coaching. This is closer to counselling, but still not that, I don't think. It's pastoral care in which I'm trying to care for the well-being, emotional, psychological, and perhaps you could say spiritual component of a person. Whereas coaching is, let's talk about the difficulties you're encountering in your work or possibly your career. Let's talk about some strategies to help you overcome that. So coaching shares some similarities with the pastoral care, but also some differences as well. Yeah.
Wow, so powerful, so important what you're doing there.
Well, thank you. There are lots of people doing. I'm nowhere near alone. There are thousands of people across the UK volunteering in this space, and it carries its own challenges, but it also carries its own reward as well.
Well, hats off to you, because a conversation we had off camera when we were just chatting earlier on is, how busy we both are, and when you're running your own business, and you're just always on. So actually, it would be so easy to say, I haven't got time to do that. So I'm like, impressed that you are making that.
Well, thank you. Because I get my own psychological payoff from doing it, for sure.
Good.
Yeah.
It goes back to that thing of there's no selfless act.
Quite possibly true. Yeah. I'm trying to, like a lot of my coaching clients, I'm trying to become the better version of me. That's a conversation I have with a lot of my coaching clients as well.
So let's go there then. Your Career Reimagined.
Yeah.
What, just describe to anyone that doesn't know what all that's about.
Thank you. Well, that's great. Thanks for the opportunity, Catherine. So in my career, I've been involved with a lot of change, restructuring and organizational change processes, where I've been a consultant, I've been a trainer connected with that in some well-known organizations. And I've watched and supported a great many people who are going through job loss, where restructuring was happening and they were either about to or have already lost the job that they had. And I watched that process unfold with a number of individuals, and I've supported and helped a number of people through it. And the more I did that, the more I realized I found it very rewarding. And I guess to be fair, the more I realized I was quite good at it. I kind of understood the phases that people typically go through. It was partly informed by the fact that I've been made redundant a couple of 3 times in my own career, which again, I'm sure some of your L&D colleagues whom you might interview in the future might well share that experience of working in an organization for some years and then suddenly finding that the L&D job that they had might not be there because of some organizational structural change. Because I did that. So, sorry, Catherine, go on.
I was just going to say, often that gives people not the confidence, but the opportunity to go, do you know what, I'm going to try this out for myself, where they might not have done if they hadn't been sort of out of an organisation. I've spoken to many people that have done that.
Yeah. So it is a bit of a cliche, isn't it? That the loss of something will often bring an opportunity for something else. But of course, when you're in the middle of that process, it might not feel that way.
Yeah, that uncertainty.
Because for some people, it genuinely is a form of bereavement. The fact that they've lost the career or job that they had and had expected to continue into the future. Sometimes with some of my coaching clients, I'm helping them put themselves back together again, just so that they can cope for the next few months or weeks with the shock of their job loss. Sometimes dealing with anger, disappointment, guilt, anxiety, and so on, before we can get anywhere near the strategies that will help this person get back into the job market and become the best version of themselves again. So yeah, having been through that, around that loop, both myself and watched other people go through it, I began to get a feel for it and like it. That's what led me to form Your Career Reimagined. So I work with job seekers, I work with career returners, people who might have been away from work for some years to look after dependents, which might be small children, but could also these days be an elderly dependent. Yeah. That need has changed or has gone away now, and they want to step back into the workplace. Sometimes with anxiety that things might have changed during the 10 or 15 or maybe longer years that I've been away. Worried about their skills having decayed, and worried about just stepping back into that demanding environment. I can help people with that. Early career starters, some people about to leave the education system or left the education system recently and have not yet sort of settled on a career direction. So I kind of understand some of the pressures and some of the dilemmas that millennials, Generation Z and so on might face as their career begins to unfold, and some of the challenges that they might meet. So I work with a quite a diverse group of individuals, but all of whom are trying to solve some job development or job search or career development kind of problem. Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned about millennials and the next generations are coming through. And, I remember early in my career concerned about what career path am I on? And, you look at them and you think, you've got decades ahead of you. Yeah. What's the rush? And, the idea is that now we'll have several careers or portfolio careers. So this, but you can't take that away from people if they're concerned and they don't know what path they're on. And I remember once describing to my manager at the time, I said, I'm so enthusiastic and I'm so ambitious and I feel like I'm the, do you remember the cartoon, The Roadrunner? When he wants to his legs go like that. And I'm like, I'm doing that and I'm waiting to go, pyong, but I don't know what direction I want to pyong in. And the frustration I felt, I really remember it keenly.
Yeah. So if I was working with a client like that, then I'd be trying to delve into where that energy comes from, what's the buzz it gives you. And so just trying to make the best of that drive and that determination so that you could realize some of what you want, assuming, of course, that you're able to be clear about what that is. And some of my clients aren't clear about what they really want. So if that's really interesting for me as a coach, because it involves going right back to basics about who are you? And some people have never really asked themselves that question. It sounds funny, but actually it's led to some lovely stories, like the finance director who was mid to late 40s, was very good at his job, highly numerate, really good with numbers, lost the job when his company was taken over by a competitor. And in the course of my conversations with him, realized that he did not want to do that anymore. And the reason he started doing it was really to satisfy mum and dad back in the very early part of his career. And I remember his eyes filled with tears and he's, oh my God, I don't really want to do that anymore. And trying to help him put himself back together again was to take value from that work that he'd done and the great value he'd added to his employers, but to realize that actually he wanted to reinvent himself now as something else, which as it turns out was a landscape gardener.
I love it.
Why? And how did I work that out? I didn't work that out. He told me. Why? Because that's what he did in his spare time. He was creating a unique garden at home, and guess what? He was doing it for his neighbours, for members of the family.
Wow.
He contributed to the community garden of the community that he lived in, and that was what gave him his joy, really. And do you know what? I've got the chance now to do it all day, every day. And off he went to do exactly that. But to get to that crossroads moment was quite challenging for him, because it involved leaving behind something that he knew very, very well.
Because when we spend so much time working, it's who we are, isn't it? It's our identity. So when that's taken away from you, it must be, like you said, like a bereavement for some people.
For some people, for sure. When I think about millennials and Generation Zs, people who've recently left the education system or about to, that's actually quite a challenge for them to realise, because they're surrounded by so much opportunity and there's so much information available. You could say too much information available. I quite understand how a young person would find that threatening, about making a choice. Where do I start? Where do I go first? Who am I really? Why? Because you might have numerous personas, mightn't you? There's the one your friends know, your intimate face-to-face friends. But what about the face that you present to your Facebook friends or your social media friends, many of whom you'll never actually meet, and so on and so on. Things are more fragmented, it seems to me, now than when I started out in my career. And I can see how making those choices is quite difficult sometimes for young people to deal with. And part of what I try to do is help them hook back into what really drives them and what gives them joy, what their true core values really are. If you can find that, then there are probably careers that will call upon that from you. Yeah.
Because I mean, back in the day when I first started out in my career, it was laid out for you. You know, it was. Yeah. I remember I'd get promotion pretty much every February. Next rung of the ladder, next rung of the ladder, next rung of the ladder, and it's just not like that these days at all. And on that note, then, Martin. So, I've had a few conversations with people recently who are how do I say, they're many years into their career.
Yep.
And the idea of redundancy.
You can say I'm old. It's okay. You can say I'm old. It's fine.
But it's like when you get people who are moving towards the end of their career, but they're not ready for retirement, who are facing things like redundancies.
Yeah.
What's your advice to people in that situation?
So let me just be clear. Let me practice my coaching skills. So you're asking me, what if somebody's about to lose the career trajectory that they had in their mind, and it's not going to be there anymore? How do I help people in that situation? Yeah,
especially when they're towards the end of their career, because you know, if you're 25 and you get made redundant, you're going to jump in a different job straight away. So
sure. So there's a bit of calibration for a coach to do first about where is this person in their head, and perhaps in their heart as well. So it's both emotional and psychological. So is the loss of your hoped for career path, what's the impact of that been upon you right now? What's the feeling? Is it anger? Is it bereavement? Is it grief? Is it shock? Is it denial? Is it all there's a range of questions around there, and I try to invite my clients to be as articulate as they can be about that. I also ask what's in their heads, what's the videotape they're playing about the immediate future, what are their fears and anxieties, if you like. And that's a process of calibration. Typically that might take me at least one hour session with some clients. Others have got that straight away and they're ready for those questions because they've thought it through. But once I've got that calibrated, we then start to talk. I'll then invite the client to talk about who they really are, what gives them joy, what the core values are, what do you do in your spare time, what's most important to you after family, and all those sort of accepted priorities, and so on and so on. I'm just trying to get a picture of what it is that energizes and invigorates this person. And in a sense, Catherine, even in this conversation, you've articulated that about yourself, where your energy and determination and joy comes from. And you said feeling like Roadrunner with all that energy going. For you, it's simply a case of finding the right direction for it, and then your own drive will take you forwards. So for some of my clients, once I've done that calibration job, if you like, it's really getting a pen picture of who the person really is, and then we start to talk about opportunities going forward. That's before you get to any of the mechanical things like how to write a CV and how to get ready for an interview. finding that sense of direction is fundamental for some of my clients. In fact, for all of my clients. The next step that follows before we get anywhere near a CV is a lot of the opportunities for you in the job market aren't visible to you. The internet has made life, in some senses, more difficult for a job seeker rather than easier. Why? Because all the information's available, and what's worse is everybody can see it.
Yeah.
If I spot a job on another well-known website, BBC quote here, other websites are available. If I see that job and I think, I fit that job like a glove, I'm their perfect dream candidate, I can apply for it and I won't even get a reply. Why? Because everybody else can see it.
Yeah.
My chances of getting that job are less than 1%.
Wow.
That's just the stats. My CV probably won't be read by an individual. It'll probably be read by a piece of software. So all that there are obstacles to overcome, but the majority of real opportunities are hidden from view because they're not advertised in a place that you'll see them, or quite often they're not advertised at all because they're filled through a network. I know something about how to tap into that network and to find those hidden vacancies, those hidden opportunities. And it's partly about using the internet with savvy, if you like, but it's also about knowing where to look, which stones to turn over so you can find these hidden vacancies. And if you're lucky, you'll be the only candidate. There's a way of doing it that makes you the only candidate. You're a category of one. Wow. The organisation not talking to anybody else. And when you're in that situation, then you're a much more powerful proposition for a potential employer. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I can mention LinkedIn. Anyone listening or watching this, if you check out, we'll actually put a link, if you're happy for us to, Martin, to your LinkedIn profile, because
that's very kind, Catherine. Thank you.
Blogs and advice, and you are always offering good pieces of solid suggestions on LinkedIn, and your website as well. We'll put a link to, because that's
very kind. Thank you.
By the way, I do like your website a lot. It's lovely and clean and fresh, and yeah, I like that. We'll definitely put those links in.
You can edit this bit out. Guess who designed it? Toby designed it for me because he's a professional artist. So he chose all the colours. He designed all the links. I just wrote the copy for it.
Oh, he's done a great job. Should we put a link to Toby's website as well then?
Yeah. Okay.
Toby's Martin's son, by the way. Anyone listening?
Okay. Well, I assume you're going to edit that bit out, but yeah, I'm sure.
No, we'll leave it in, definitely.
Thank you.
So what else was I going to say? I've been really fortunate in my career that, one, I've always had a job. I've never been in danger of being redundant. Yeah. And I absolutely, I make this no secret at all. Everyone knows I love what I do. I'm so lucky. The old adage, do what you love and love what you do, and you'll never work.
I've always known that about during the times when you and I have worked together. That shines out of you, Catherine. I've always known that about you, really. I've watched you in front of a group, and I've watched you working with me. As I've been your commissioning client when you and I worked together, and it was your enthusiasm and energy that led me to stay in touch with you after we stopped working together. Yeah.
Oh, that's so kind. You can't fake it, can you? Not for very long anyway. So it's thank you. That's really nice. I need to ask you a final question then.
Yep.
So go back to Martin the kid.
Yep.
Where did you grow up, by the way?
Between Liverpool and Manchester. Yeah, Warrington.
So Warrington. Okay, no, it was. So Martin the kid in Warrington.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about Martin the kid that has sort of influenced or informed who you are now? Do you see any links there? I'm always intrigued.
Yeah. I mean, the fact is I was slightly delinquent as a school child. I was a bit badly, in fact, I was very badly behaved as a teenager.
No.
So I kind of went off the rails a bit during that period. I've become really quite staid and boring since, I think, compared.
You got it out your system when you were...
I think I probably did, yeah. But I guess the story that has just popped back into my head was, it won't be untypical for a northern lad growing up. There was some playground bullying that went on, and I remember getting duffed up by a schoolmate of mine. He wasn't a schoolmate; he was a school enemy, I guess. He did duff me up a couple of times, and then he tried it a third time, and I actually managed, instead of being the loser this time, I managed somehow to get him wrestled to the ground. My knees were on his shoulders, and I could have taken my revenge then, because he'd done it a couple of times, and I couldn't go through with it. I had my knees on his shoulders, I had my fists clenched over his face, and I could have had my revenge for the 2 times that he'd sent me home with a black eye and a cut lip. And I could not go through with it. I just couldn't. Wow. It was completely at my mercy, and I didn't know what to do next. As you won't be surprised to hear, guess what? After that, we became reasonably close friends. And that stayed that way until I left school at 18. So that was right from, 10 years old. That was probably a 10-year relationship, 10 or 12-year relationship, something like that. And it all went back to that incident where I just couldn't deal with it. I couldn't kind of go through with that physical revenge that I could have taken. And I think then I kind of twigged in my own head that there was something motivating me about helping people in vulnerable situations. And I think that's still with me today. Yeah.
So did you have, in that moment when you could have just duffed him up, did you have empathy for him? Is that what it was? Did you feel sorry for him? Or were you frightened of retaliation? What was? Can you remember?
It wasn't fear of retaliation. I remember that. It was I couldn't imagine myself inflicting pain on someone else,
even though he'd done it to you twice.
Exactly, and that's not because I'm a saint. Because I've made lots and lots of mistakes and been and upset other people both in my life and my career. But at that moment where I had a choice, I interestingly, for reasons I didn't really understand at the time, I chose not to go through with it. Yeah, and I think that may well inform something about the person I am today. Yeah,
makes a lot of sense. What a great story. You'll have to look him up.
I think Friends Reunited. I think I did find him at one point, but that was some time ago now.
You never know. He might be just wandering through YouTube or something like that, and our video now pops up, and he's like, "That was me. That was me."
Could well be.
Oh, I love that story. Thank you, Martin. It's been lovely to catch up. It's been way too long. We need to do this more often.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, I'm grateful for the opportunity. Always interesting to talk with a fellow professional, especially one for whom I've got respect. And I mean that. I genuinely mean that. So, just keep on doing what you're doing, Catherine. It's an inspiration.
Thank you. Northerners, woohoo, we rock.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Martin.
It's a genuine pleasure, Catherine. Take care. Have a good rest of the week.
And
all
you.
right. Bye for now.